you're probably buying the wrong size cooler. Bigger is not always best, and smaller isn't always practical. It's a hot one today, which is great for a cooler test, so that gets me excited because today I'm testing these different size RTIC Ultra-Light coolers side by side to figure out exactly how size affects ice retention. I'll also show you when each size makes sense so that you don't end up with one that's too big or too small and have buyer's remorse.
Gear up and get outside.
A quick thanks to RTIC Outdoors for sponsoring this video and for sending me their ultralight coolers to test. I've been wanting to do this test for a while, and it was important to me that all of the coolers be as close to identical as possible. I wanted the same color, the same manufacturer, and even the same construction type. So these injection molded ultralight coolers from RTIC, which are essentially all the same, just different sizes, was perfect for this test. The wheels are the best cooler wheels I have ever tested. So smooth on every surface. These ice chests range in size from 8 quarts to 72 quarts. Now, RTIC and most cooler manufacturers recommend that you pre-chill your cooler for optimum performance before you're actually going to take it out. So what I did is last night, I put some ice in each of these coolers and I let it get cold overnight. That should optimize our ice retention. Let's go get some ice. To be honest, I don't always pre-chill my coolers, especially if it's just for a camping trip or something, but it is a best practice and it's a good idea to do. So I did that, drained all the water out. Now we're starting with fresh ice. As far as how much ice I'm putting in, that depends on the size of the cooler. I figured that should be proportionate as well. A good rule of thumb is that 1 quart of volume in crushed ice is about 1 pound of ice. So going off of that, I wanted to keep these a similar ratio. So if I figure 1 quart, 1 pound, doing 2/3, I'm shooting for about 50 pounds of ice in the 72 quart, about 35 pounds of ice in the 52 quart coolers, about 20 pounds in the 32 quart, about 15 in the 22, and about 5 pounds in the little 8 quart. But after pre-chilling, there was still a little bit of extra ice left over. So these are gonna be more than 2/3 full, more than I probably would if I was actually going camping, but it'll still give you a pretty good idea of what to expect. Already you might be thinking, oh man, Chase, there's no way this is a fair test. Obviously, the big coolers are gonna last longer than the small coolers. That's kind of my assumption too, but I'm not sure if it's entirely correct based on some other tests I've done, because while I've had different size coolers in the same test, they haven't always been built the exact same way. But in this test with 6 coolers of the same brand, same build, same color, we should be able to rule out all of those other variables. Okay, I'd say they're all about even Steven on being full of ice. Now let's put some stuff in the cooler. Now I'm gonna go down the line and I'm going to make sure all the drain caps are screwed on tight. No more water is getting out. I'm going to latch them all. And now we are truly off to the races. For this test, I wanted to have as similar conditions as possible for each cooler. So they'll be in shade pretty much all the time, maybe a little bit of filtered sunlight, but it will be even for all 6 coolers. In my book, that simulates a real world scenario because when I go camping, I'm going to try to keep my cooler in the shade as much as possible to optimize ice retention. So here we have all the coolers filled up to a similar level with ice. I was going for 2/3, but we got more than that. Obviously, the biggest cooler has the most ice and the smallest has the least, but the number of cans of soda I put in each are proportionate to the size of the cooler. We also have some temperature sensing hot dogs and a Bluetooth thermometer inside. The way we're going to compare the ice retention on these different size coolers is by taking 4 observations per day. The first observation is there any ice present? If yes, it gets 1 point. If no, it gets 0 points. Second observation, is there enough ice that the cans can sit on top of it? That gives us an idea of surface tension and how much ice there is relative to water. The third observation is the hot dog at or below a temperature of 40 degrees because that is the food safe temperature. And finally, we're going to measure the temperature of the lid. We're looking for something at or below 50 degrees. That's a bit arbitrary, but it's something constant I can do on every cooler to give us an idea of how the temperature varies inside the cooler. Of course, at the end, we'll look at the temperature data from the Bluetooth thermometers, and we'll be able to draw some observations from that as well. So 4 points possible per cooler per day. Once all coolers have 0 points in a day, the game is over. The cooler with the most chill points and the most days of ice wins. All right, it has been 24 hours, day one. I've got my tools of the trade. I'm gonna check in on these coolers. It has been a hot day, about 95. So interested to see how they did, especially these little ones. Starting with our little 8-quart here, open it up. Oh, would you look at that? There is still some ice in there. Not too shabby. See that? That's pretty warm on the lid, not totally surprising. So that's a 0 for that point. Yeah, see how those sodas are just bobbing in the water? So that's 0 for that point. So far we're 1 point out of 3, or out of 4 possible. Look at that, still cold hot dogs. Those wieners are safe to eat, and that's good enough for me. 2 out of 4 points. Looking at the 22 quart, boom. Still plenty of ice present, and the sodas are well on top of the ice. Easily under. 3 out of 4 points for the 22 quart. Here's the 32 quart. This one gets a little bit of sunshine filtered this time of day, but not too bad, just like they all do. See that? 47 degrees, I like that. Plenty of ice. Oh yeah, nice and cold on those wieners. Okay, on to the 52 quart with no wheels. Ooh, looks good on ice, that's a point. Excellent on temperature, look at that, that's chilly, that's a point. Sodas are on ice, that's 3 points. And those hot dogs are cold, that's 4 points. Let's see if the 52 quart with wheels is the same. Looks like plenty of ice. Cold lid, 4 points. Okay, here's our big boy, 72 quarts. Lots of ice still. Cold lid, soda's definitely on the ice. And very cold hot dogs. And full points on the 72 quart. Now you see how the daily observations will go. We'll move a little quicker tomorrow. These RTIC Ultra-Light coolers are designed to be lightweight but rugged. Perfect for tailgates, camping, beach days, or road trips. Well before we had decided to partner with RTIC, I had purchased one of their 52-quart ultralight wheeled coolers, and I torture tested that thing. I threw it off a roof, I kicked it off the tailgate, I pulled it behind a side-by-side. And man, that thing is tough. I could not destroy it. Ultralight coolers are different from rotomolded coolers because they use innovative injection molded technology to ditch the heavy weight without sacrificing durability or ice retention. Another day has come and gone. It is another hot one, but these coolers are in the shade. Let's see how they look. Starting with our little guy, the 8-quart. Ooh, I'm not surprised to see that this one is pretty warm inside. But what is impressive is that with just 5 pounds of ice, that sucker lasted more than a day. That's going to keep your lunch cold all day long. Frankly, I think it'd be great for an overnight solo camping trip as well. Let's take a look at our next smallest, the 22 quart. That lid is not very cold. So 3 out of 4 points for the 22 quart. Here goes the 32 quart. 3 out of 4 points for the 32 quart. Okay, here we go on the 52 quart. No wheels. 52 quart wheeled. And the big boy. So it looks like our assumptions are true so far. The 3 smallest are losing and the 3 largest are still getting full points. It's been 3 whole days. Let's see how these coolers are doing. Starting with the 22 quart. Oh boy, look at that. We do still have some ice. 2 out of 4 points for the 22 quart. Here's our 32 quart. Oh man, that one's looking right there with the 22 quart. Oh, yep, lid's not gonna point either. Same for the 32 quart, 2 out of 4 points. We still have 5 out of 6 of these coolers in the running. Even that little 22 quart, that's pretty impressive. And by the way, it's another hot day today. It's been in the mid-90s. Okay, it's day 5. That means it has been 4 entire days since we began this ordeal. Looking at the 22 quart, ooh, still has ice, so it gets at least 1 point. That's pretty impressive, actually, that a 22 quart cooler is still keeping your stuff cold after 4 days. 52 quart, no wheels. Hey, look at all that water. That's a big change from yesterday, but still pretty cold there. This is where I start calling these bobbing, where you got more than about 50% of the can down in the water. So 3 out of 4 points on this one. But here's the big question. Is the big kahuna still gonna get 4 out of 4? The 52 quarts and the 72 quart are still tied. It is day 6. Uh-oh, this one looks like it's out of the running, folks. Yep, 60 degrees, no points there, no points for ice. Everything's bobbing. Womp womp. The 22 liter is out of the running, 0 points. So far it's going as predicted. Hopefully this gets a little more interesting. Here's the 32 quart. Oh my goodness. Ooh, that water feels colder. In the 40s, but still above 40. Okay, so there we go. The 32 quart is also out. And this is what the coolers look like 7 days after ice was put in there. Here is our 52 quart with wheels. Here we're looking in the one with wheels though. Look at that. There is still a little bit of ice, not much so, but it still gets the point. Okay, and finally the 72 quart. I expect he's still okay, and indeed he is. To be continued. While we're waiting for ice to melt, if you're in the market for a new cooler, consider this. I really like these RTIC Ultra-Light wheeled coolers. The wheels themselves are just super smooth. I don't know what they're made of, but they're not inflatable and they're hard enough to be super rugged, but they're soft enough to roll smoothly over just about any surface. And the tow handle is one of the best I've seen. It's very ergonomic, it's easy to grab and carry, plus it's easy to hold on the side so that when you're pulling it, you're standing off to the side, and that way the cooler isn't whacking you in the back of the calves. They've got nice stainless steel bottle openers on them and a really nice silicone cargo net. The latches are easy to operate one-handed. You don't have to put a ton of brute force into them. Now that I've been using one for a couple years, I can say it's a very convenient, easy to use, and durable cooler. 8 days it has been. This is usually when the boys are separated from the men. Starting with our RTIC 52 quart wheeled, non-wheeled rather. Look at all that healthy ice. This one, however, was looking a little lean on ice yesterday. Let's see. Folks, I do believe this one is totally out of ice. It might surprise you, but a lot of times the hot dog temperature is the last point. But nope, we're above 40 degrees on this guy. Let's check the big dog, the 72 quart. Still ice in there. How about them apples? All right, so there you have it. One more down. 2 are still in the running. I have all the ones that have already dropped out, open and drying out, because that hot dog water gets stanky. But let's take a look at the RTIC Ultra-Light 52 quart non-wheeled cooler. Dun dun dun. Oh my gosh, look at that. Folks, we still have some decent ice in there. Wow. This cooler has impressed me before and it's impressing me now. But how about the big guy? Is it gonna beat it? Would you look at that, folks? The ice is gone. The 72 quart is out. So yeah, it made it 8 full days, but didn't quite make it 9. More than 8 days though, 8.5 days we'll call it. 10 days have passed since we began this little ice challenge, and there's only one remaining contestant, the RTIC Ultra-Light 52 quart without wheels, surprising us by besting even the largest cooler. So let's open this puppy up and see if it's still in the running. Dun dun dun. It is not. It is over. The game has finally come to an end and we have a champion, and thank goodness, because I would like to move on with my life and quit just waiting for ice to melt. But kudos to these coolers for lasting so long. That is pretty impressive. Here's how they finished in terms of total days of ice and chill points. As it turns out, there is a direct relationship between the size of your cooler and how long it holds ice. Big surprise. The little 8 quart cooler lasted just over a full day, which isn't bad for a lunchbox. The 22 and 32 quarts tied at 4 days. I was a tad surprised to see such a minuscule difference between these two. The 52 quart cooler with wheels lasted a full week, which is a day longer than its best previous appearance in my other tests. I think pre-chilling the cooler and its contents in advance might be to thank for that. The big 72 quart ultralight cooler lasted 8 days, which, let's be honest, is far longer than most people or outings require. I'm pretty sure the beer's gonna be gone by then. The notable exception here is that 52 quart ultralight cooler without wheels. This was the first ultralight cooler RTIC released, and my hunch is that there's something different about its construction compared to the others. Okay, let me jump in here real quick because I reached out to RTIC and asked them why we might be seeing that difference in ice retention performance between the two 52 quart coolers, and here's what they said. I'm reading from an email, by the way. The non-wheeled 52 with 4 clean corners on the bottom and no wheel wells maximizes the space for insulation in every corner. And there you have it. It gets you an extra day or two of ice retention. If we hide the oddball here, we can see that the larger the cooler, the better the ice retention. Bigger coolers hold more ice, food, and drinks. That gives them more thermal mass, so they take longer to heat up or cool down for that matter. When packed with ice and drinks proportionately based on the volume of an ice chest, bigger coolers will stay cold longer. But let's look at the internal air temperatures because sometimes that tells a different story. There's a lot going on in this chart, so let me break it down for you. The vertical lines represent midnight each day. The peaks are the hottest part of each day, which was usually in the 80s or 90s, though it did hit 100 degrees one day and cooled to the upper 70s the last few days. The little spikes you see in there at the top of the peaks are when I open the cooler to record my observations. The low point, or the troughs, are the coolest parts of each day. Each cooler's line ends the day I observed there was no ice left, so it actually ran out of ice before then. As you can see, the small 8 quart cooler never got as cold as the others. No surprise there. The 22 and 32 quart ultralight coolers were in lockstep the whole way, but the larger one stayed a bit cooler inside. And it appears our largest 72 quart cooler, line in blue, only fell about 18 hours short of our winner, the 52 quart without wheels. The 3 larger coolers all got consistently colder than the smaller ones. That's where that thermal mass comes in handy. Here's the final table of the results. Pause your screen to study it if you'd like. Speaking of liking stuff, if you're liking this video at all, do me a favor and hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for more like this. As a thank you, here's a photo of an upside down corgi. It's quite impressive to see coolers hold ice for more than a week in summertime temperatures. However, I'm in Idaho where we get dry heat and cool nights. You might not get the same if you live in the South or in Texas or some sweaty hot place like that. If you do use your cooler where it's hotter, or you plan on taking it out on a boat where it's going to be exposed to full sun all day, then you probably ought to expect to get no more than half of the days of ice that I did in my shady backyard test. Here's when each size cooler really makes sense. Personal coolers, which I consider to be anything that's under 20 quarts, make great lunchboxes or picnic companions. They work well for holding a few drinks and snacks that you'll consume within the day. Small coolers within the 20 to 40 quart range are sufficient for quick trips with only a few people. Think road trips, overnight campouts, and beach days. They also work well for small items that you need to keep cold for a few days, so long as you pack it full of ice and don't open it until you have to. Mid-sized coolers between 40 and 65 quarts hit the sweet spot for most families. I have a family of 5, and this is the size that we use the most. They're perfect for days at the lake with a group, barbecues, ball games, and long weekend campouts. I consider any cooler a large one if it's over 65 quarts in capacity. These coolers will basically always require 2 people to lift and move them. This is what you want for extended and remote trips in the backcountry where you can't replenish ice, food, or drinks. They're also ideal for preserving wild game meat, so hunting, fishing, and whitewater rafting trips come to mind. The large coolers are also useful for outfitters, commercial fishermen, and even food vendors who just need to be able to hold a lot of ice and a lot of drinks and a lot of food to feed a lot of people. Now, if you're a hunter looking to pack your meat home in a cooler, a 65 quart is about right for a white-tailed deer or a pronghorn antelope. You want more like 80 to 100 quarts for a mule deer, and you'll want about 200 quarts of cooler capacity for an elk. At that point, it's more manageable to split the meat across multiple coolers. Don't buy too big or too small, or you'll regret it. Ideally, you could get 2 sizes of coolers to cover the gamut of what you'll use it for. Here are some mistakes that you should avoid when selecting your cooler size. Don't buy huge coolers unnecessarily. They might be hard to fit in your car, move around on your own, and drag on the beach. Big coolers that are mostly empty will melt ice fast. Ice can be expensive and you'll burn through it quickly if you're using a larger than necessary cooler. On the other hand, don't assume that smaller coolers will always suffice. For multi-day trips with more than 1 or 2 people, food and drinks add up quickly in volume. Pay attention to ice ratios. Most manufacturers recommend a 2-to-1 ice to contents ratio for optimal ice retention, which doesn't leave as much space for food and drinks as you might think if you need it to stay cold for a long time. Also, small coolers with very little ice or just an ice pack won't keep your food and drinks cold for very long, if at all. Food can spoil and drinks will not be satisfyingly cold. As a rule of thumb, for a few nights of camping, I usually fill my mid-size cooler halfway with ice and the other half is for food and drinks. Don't forget to pre-chill whenever possible. Put a bag of ice in the cooler and your food in the fridge the night before you pack and go. This can buy you an extra day or 2 of ice retention, and it's especially important with smaller coolers when you need it to last more than a few hours. Check out RTIC's full ultralight cooler lineup. There's a perfect size for every adventure. You're truly getting excellent bang for your buck with an RTIC Ultralight cooler. Link below. My final recommendation on cooler size is that mid-size coolers in that 40 to 65 quart range really hit the sweet spot for most uses. If you're getting your first cooler, this is probably what you want. Of course, small coolers are convenient for day trips, and large coolers are best for extended adventures because the ice lasts longer. If you're torn between 2 sizes, go for the larger one as long as it fits in your car. What size cooler works best for you? Ever regret your choice? Drop your comments below. If you like cooler tests like this, go watch this video next. Then gear up and get outside.